Stanley Cup Playoffs, round 2, a pair of series openers on this tremendous Tuesday night.
The Rolling Stones sing "Start Me Up" out in Vegas, but the Golden Knights couldn't finish.
And Slavin saves the Canes from the Caps in overtime.
Yes, sir. We've got those recaps and so much more on this Tuesday night Stanley Cup Playoff edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night, the only stop for the diehard fans. I'm Cam Stewart, a sad Boston Bruins fan living on the third coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. And Cam, we dropped the puck on two more second-round series tonight. Carolina visiting the Capitol, Edmonton taking on Sin City, and once again, both games delivered.
Who, Tyler, did they ever? Hurricanes come back to beat Washington in overtime. The Oilers said, hold my beer. They turned that 1-goal deficit out in Washington. They overcome a 2-goal deficit to stun the Golden Knights on their home ice and win it 4-2. Let's start out there in the Sin City, shall we?
Okay. Yes.
It was a heck of a start for the Golden Knights, as it typically is for them in these postseason home games. Mark Stone, not once, but twice in the first 9 minutes of the game. All right, pack it in, done and dusted, 2-0 Golden Knights. And oh, by the way, in the last 5 seasons, they haven't ever blown a multi-goal lead in the playoffs until now. Edmonton starts chipping away. Corey Perry gets one towards the end of the first period. It's a beautiful setup on that perfect line, right? Draisaitl, cross ice, McDavid, who slams one down to the net front for Corey Perry. A nice finish. It's 2-1. They dominate the second period. It is a 12-1 in shots for Edmonton in the second period, but nothing comes of it. We go into the third, it's still 2-1, and then the Oilers start to open things up. Little divine intervention. Leon Draisaitl gets a weird one that Hill tries to catch, and it ends up bouncing off him. Crazy goal to get it to 2-2, Tyler.
Hey, Cam, could I just say on that note, did it seem like to you, because it did to me, that the boards were really bouncy tonight in Vegas?
Lively, yeah.
The boards had some juice, because I feel like that was not the only time we saw that kind of play where a big ricochet off the boards. And I've seen bouncy boards before, but it was just noticeable tonight in Vegas.
Yeah, and you would think it's a home ice advantage. You know, that's the old story. All the home guys know where the bounces come. But it benefits the Oilers tonight. Draisaitl gets the wacky one. It's 2-2 a minute into the third, and it starts winding down. We're thinking a little West Coast overtime again.
I wasn't. I knew it would be regulation. We had to film this show.
The Oilers were coming in like a tidal wave in that third period. Like, you knew something was coming. Zach Hyman, wicked wrister, makes it 3-2. And then before the Golden Knights have a chance, really, with the goal he pulled, Connor Brown, breakaway goal, puts Shea Theodore right on his rear end, makes it 4-2 with just under 2 minutes to go. And that's how we get there. A 1-0 series lead, 5 straight playoff wins for the Edmonton Oilers. Nick Zararis, he's changed his tune quite a bit from when they were down 2-0 against the Kings. It's the defending Western Conference champs that have the edge.
The Edmonton Oilers might have been underdogs coming into their second-round series against the Vegas Golden Knights, but don't tell them that. Nick Zararis of Locked On Oilers here after a 4-2 win on road ice in Vegas, where the Oilers put together one of their best performances of the entire season, let alone the playoffs. The forecheck was outstanding. At one point in this game, the Oilers went 14 shots on goal for, conceding 1 Vegas shot on goal against in the second period. Vegas was out of sorts. Adin Hill, miraculous job of keeping Vegas in this game. And the longer it went on, it seemed only a matter of time. And then Leon Draisaitl banked a goal from below the goal line off Adin Hill's back to tie the game at 2. And from there, The Oilers kept waiting and waiting. And then Zach Hyman off the rush, Connor Brown off the rush, 4-2 the final. The Oilers putting together a really complete effort where Calvin Pickard's 5th straight start was maybe the 4th or 5th most important storyline. For more on the Oilers and their 1-0 lead in the second round, be sure to check out Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube.
The overwhelming thought I had in this game for the last 2 periods, Tyler, and from what we saw, obviously, in the back half of that Kings series too, this looks like the team that made the Stanley Cup final last year.
Absolutely. And comparing it to the earlier game that we'll get to later on in the show, Carolina outplayed Washington for most of that game, and it wasn't until late they needed overtime to get that victory. So a similar storyline across both games tonight in the East and in the West. And you said it right there, Cam. Those final 2 periods, those final 40 minutes, you take away Vegas's start, those 2 quick goals from Mark Stone, 50 minutes of this game was dominated by Edmonton. And this is against a very good Vegas team. This Vegas team is deep. Now, I will say that Vegas was without Alex Pietrangelo, one of their top defensemen. He was out with an illness. That was a late scratch. So him coming back, hopefully, how does that change game 2? We'll see. But the Oilers, their top line, they were getting goals across the board. They were getting bounces late. And that's because they were out playing. They were out skating, out hitting. They were doing it in the faceoff circle. Every stat you look at, the Oilers were dominating. And that's impressive, especially on the road to start out this series. 5 straight wins. They are the first team in Stanley Cup playoff history to have 5 consecutive come-from-behind victories, which is just sensational.
And how about that too? Like this didn't become a talking point to the extent that it did in Toronto, but there was some of that. Like, does this team have the backbone going into last season? Do they have the backbone to get there? I think it was also a bit of a talent issue outside of those top 2 players that kind of lingered for years with Edmonton. But they've got that. Like they do. You don't see a lot of them because they are the northernmost team in the league and they play on the West Coast. You don't see a lot of it, but the Oilers are showing that they still have the pieces to make a Stanley Cup final run again. Vegas, I mean, look, this is game 1. All right. They ain't dead here yet. We know how good they usually are on home ice. That's why Chris Golick of Locked On Golden Knights was so stunned walking out of the building tonight.
Game 1 to the Edmonton Oilers. What's up, everybody? Chris Golick, Locked On Vegas Golden Knights. Little Chris hanging out as well. Yes, he's wearing the enemy's colors, but I'm representing the proper colors. This game started out pretty well for the Vegas Golden Knights. Got out to a nice 2-0 early start. It felt like it was going to be all systems go for the Golden Knights. Not so fast. Golden Knights held to 1 shot in the second period. Could not get on the score sheet for the rest of the game. Oilers win this game at least 4-2. They might have snuck an empty netter when we left, but we'll call it a 4-2 victory for the Edmonton Oilers. Myself and Tony will break this down on tomorrow's Locked On Vegas Golden Knights. Your team every day.
We will also call it a 4-2 Oilers victory because that is what it was. We're going to talk a little bit more about, how Vegas bounces back later. But Tyler, we mentioned it from the Oilers side of things. You just can't be the better team for 10 minutes, even if you're on your home ice and you're spotted a 2-goal lead.
Certainly surprised at how Vegas closed out this game, given the fact that they came in having won 3 straight. Yes, the Oilers came in with 4 straight wins and now have 5 consecutive victories, but Vegas was just as hot. And I think if you go back 2 years when these 2 teams met in the playoffs, that was a very intense series. The Vegas Golden Knights ended up winning the Stanley Cup that year. But Adin Hill, before this season even started, he said, quote, definitely some heat from a couple of years ago, some hard feelings. So I think the emotions from both sides in this game. So you saw Adin Hill in net tonight. Great start. Mark Stone, 2 goals. He was happy with how he played in that first period. But then Edmonton got one late. Corey Perry, veteran, just why you have that guy on the team. Just a beautiful pass from McDavid, which you talked about earlier. And then they dominated the second period. What happened to Vegas in the second period? On your home ice, they're lucky. Adin Hill played well. He made a couple big saves in that second period, but it could have been a lot worse going into the third period, and the Oilers just kept pressing. It almost felt like Vegas was comfortable with where they were at, which is why I think the Golden Knights might respond well from a loss like this. Yeah, you're going to need to bring it a little bit more for more than just 10 minutes if you want to beat a very good team, the defending Western Conference champions, in a series like this. With the top-line talent, it seems like the Oilers were healthier tonight. Vegas was missing a couple guys. I think that played a big part. But to that point, Vegas disappeared.
Absolutely.
They got lost in the cards. They got lost at the tables. They should have cashed out. They cashed out too soon.
I like all of this.
They left.
It's a David Blaine magic trick
left
here.
Cash on the table, and they were just lost in the sauce. They forgot where they were at.
You've got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. They folded at the wrong time. Let's just say that. They folded with way too much time left on the clock. There was no safe lead on home ice in this night of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that was certainly the case on the East Coast as well. Let's take you to Washington for a stunner in Game 1, Hurricanes Capitals. That's coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
But first, looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious. If so, crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. If you guys listen to this show, if you watch this show, you know I love these wonderful pistachios. Big fan. They are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and what Wonderful Pistachios calls better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, you guys know this. I like to keep things clean. I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk here, talking to Cam, on a road trip to the gym, or just needing that quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every show for that satisfying crunch, which sometimes I'm in that position, mostly though I'm a no-shells variety guy, but the in-show option, that's a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Back here on Locked On NHL Game Night alongside Tyler Feldman. I'm Cam Stewart, bringing it to you every night, 7 days a week. We're here, whether it's us or Eddie and Shukri. We're bringing you all the scores, stats, storylines, and everything else from this great season that has been in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're into Game 1 of round number 2. The top seed in the East taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. They're used to being here. Carolina, every year they win at least one round, and here they are in the second round again. And you might be fooled. If you're waking up this morning, you didn't watch it last night, and you see, wow, Carolina wins it 2-1 in Washington. You might even go so far as saying they stole this one. You would be wrong. Carolina absolutely deserved this victory. They outplayed Washington from whistle to whistle, the full 60 minutes. Frederik Andersen back in between the pipes for the Canes.
Big.
A huge lift for them. He only needs to make, I think it's 14 saves in the game. But they do fall down 1-0, which is crazy. You know, they were dominant from the jump. Alexi Protas gets the first goal of the game early in the second, and it's 1-0 Washington for a good deal. I mean, Carolina hits the post like a billion times. They lead the league in the Stanley Cup playoffs in shots hitting the post. But Logan Stankoven hops on a turnover, gets one back to tie it at 1 with about 10 minutes left to go in regulation. And then talk about a CNI shot. Jaccob Slavin gets that and more in the OT winner from the blue line, just throws it at the net, through a ton of guys, doesn't get deflected. Don't know how much Logan Thompson sees of it, but it is the game winner for one of my absolute favorite players in the league. As you could probably tell by the show by now, Jaccob Slavin, I still think is one of the most underrated players out there. He gets the winner. Carolina takes the 1-0 series lead. If there was one person that wasn't surprised, it was Zach Martin of Locked On Hurricanes.
Score 1 for the Carolina Hurricanes as they are now up 1-0 in the series in round 2 against the Washington Capitals. And what a way to do it, too, in overtime. Luckily, a single overtime, not a double. And it's Jaccob Slavin with the game winner. Hurricanes didn't lead at all in this game, but they came out on top. Now they lead the series 1-0. And, you know, the power play, did go 0 for this time, but the PK did their job, shut down the Capitals. And Frederik Andersen, what a way to just put in another great effort, another game where it gave up 1 or less. Logan Stanley got the game tired in the third period, and like I said, Slavin gets it in overtime. Now the Hurricanes got the win on the road. That's what you were looking for, and now you're up 1-0 with Game 2 on Thursday. And if they take this one, that's a huge momentum boost for them going into Game 3 on Saturday. So now it's going to Thursday, try to take the second one, and you're at least split coming back home. But what a great start to the series for the Hurricanes.
Carolina, 94 shot attempts in this one, Tyler Feldman. Were you surprised by just how well this team came out on Washington's home ice?
No, I was surprised by the fact that the broadcast kept showing just how many shots Carolina was peppering. And it got to the point where it was so outrageous, the discrepancy between how Carolina was just shooting the puck regardless of situation. And it worked. It was a close game, but give yourself enough chances. You take 94 shots, not all of them hit the net, but you give your team a better shot to score. So Carolina's a good team. They have playoff experience. And I think that really plays big when you get to this point of the postseason. This game was wild because Carolina outplayed Washington in the first period, but you just knew that the Capitals were going to score first. It just felt like one of those games where the road team's outplaying the home team that's projected, top dog in the East. And I just had a feeling that Washington was going to find the back of the net first, but give Carolina credit. That team just battles. They've got guys that know how to win games, and it wasn't the cleanest game on either front. I really think if Carolina can figure out the power play and can figure out how to score on the man advantage, I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina sweeps Washington. I think I'm not saying that as outrageous, but if something like that happens or the Canes win in 5, I could totally see that happening.
It would need to be, yeah. No, I see where you're coming from. It would need to be something like, this is just the worst matchup for Washington that we didn't see coming. And there is something so comforting about the way the Hurricanes play, like for the old school people, in terms of every barn you go into in any level of hockey, there's that guy who's just yelling shoot the whole time. They don't have those in Raleigh because they don't need any egging on. They shoot all the time. Their penalty kill is so aggressive. They get nasty at just the right time. There's something very comforting about this Hurricanes team, even without kind of your normal everyday household name superstar, which they've been plugging away at this for years. And I think what's been great, or what was great about this game, wasn't just the way Carolina played, but the exact opposite what you got from Washington in Game 1. That was a team that did not look like the Washington we've seen all season long. And Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals says, ain't good enough.
That's not going to cut it. The Capitals fall to the Carolina Hurricanes by a final of 2-1 in OT. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. The Capitals have got to get shots on goal if they're going to want to win games. I know that this is only the first game of the second round here, but the Carolina Hurricanes outshot shots on goal 33 to the Capitals 14. If it wasn't for Logan Thompson, if it wasn't for the Capitals defense that had to block 32 shots, it would have been much worse. Alexei Protas is the guy that got the Capitals on the board in the second period, was playing on the fourth line. In OT, we saw him get a promotion to the first line and Beauvillier go down to the fourth line. But all things considered, it's not going to cut it. The Capitals have got to generate more opportunities. You saw all the opportunities that Carolina generated where they're peppering the netminder from all over the place. The Capitals have got to stop with the cutesy kind of plays and just fire the shots on net. Ryan Leonard has got to make good on his opportunities. 2 excellent opportunities, and I get it. Frederik Andersen was great in net for the Hurricanes, but a frustrating loss for the Capitals. Again, playing at Cap One in Game 1, this was a prime opportunity to get some momentum. They hope to pick up a big win on Thursday.
And it wasn't just Dan Holme, Spencer Carberry, the head coach for the Capitals as well after the game, basic paraphrasing, saying we weren't good in any facet of the game. And it did look like a team that was a bit lost out there, Tyler.
They had nearly a week off, but so did Carolina. So
Yeah.
I think you have to factor that into the equation tonight. On a positive note for Washington, Alexei Protas, 30 goals during the regular season. He comes back after getting his left foot lacerated, little cut by his skate in Game 5 against Montreal. So him coming back and scoring to get things started. And you thought, okay, here we go. Here are the Capitals. And then to all the points that were just made, they disappeared. Similarly to Vegas, the home team disappeared on their home ice, which is unacceptable at this point of the playoffs. But I think you learn a lot from this experience. Hey, if you want to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, you better start playing and better shoot the puck better find ways to score, and just play all around better. Logan Thompson was great. He made some nice saves. He kept it close, but it kind of just felt like a sluggish game for the Washington Capitals, a Capitals team that we really hadn't seen at all this season or even in the playoffs in the first round against Montreal.
Yeah, and we do have to remember, too, it's kind of easy to forget. They did make the playoffs last year, 4 pitiful playoff games from Washington last year. So outside of Ovechkin, these guys are still trying to get used to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They had the benefit of going against a very inexperienced team in the first round, but Carolina does not mess around, and they are here for the long haul in this one. Which of these home ice teams is more likely to bounce back in what feels like must-win Game 2 situations? We'll tell you after the break on Locked On NHL Game Night.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
2 games tonight in the Stanley Cup playoffs here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman. Both games go to the visitors. Both games comeback wins for the visitors. So now you flash forward to a Game 2 scenario that feels like a must-win just because you want to protect your home ice as much as you can at this point. So, Tyler, my question to you is, which of these losers tonight is more likely to bounce back and even the series in Game 2?
Cam, that's a great question.
That's why I ask him.
Washington. Yeah, you ask good questions. That's why you're in the seat that you're in right now.
That's right. A couple of retired journalists here.
Look, I would say this. Washington and Vegas both know how to win in the postseason. Recent Stanley Cup winners. We know they can do it.
Yeah.
So this is tough. I would say that Vegas has a better chance of bouncing back, even though I think Edmonton is the harder team to bounce back against. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
The Golden Knights, if they get Peter Angelo back, they get healthy. Game 2, home ice, Sin City. That environment's fantastic. I feel like the Golden Knights have the best chance to bounce back. What we saw from Edmonton, if that can carry over, fantastic, and the Golden Knights will be in trouble. But Vegas has the depth to bounce back properly on their home ice. Now, I'm not saying Carolina doesn't, but I feel like the way in which Washington played, it was so poor that they're going to come into Game 2 with a much different attitude and much different momentum.
Yeah. And I think to the Vegas point too, like we've mentioned it a few times on these shows the last few weeks, they're really good at home. They just are. And with Washington, it's not a lot of the guys that won the Stanley Cup. With Vegas, it is. It's still a huge part of that core. And they know they let one slip in this game, that you can't play 10, 15 minutes in a Stanley Cup playoff game. And they understand that. And I think you've got the coach there. You've got pretty much the entire core, or a lot of the core from the team that won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, that has been through those battles and understands that. So Washington, again, still at home. They've still got their captain from that Stanley Cup team, and obviously the franchise icon in Alex Ovechkin. You said it. They were just bad. They were bad in every facet in this game tonight. What is it that needs to kind of be corrected right away for them to even this thing up? Is it as simple as just everyone focusing more?
Well, for starters, the stars have to come alive. Didn't really hear Alex Ovechkin's name a ton in this game.
Strome.
Where was Strome? Where were their guys?
You flipped a fourth liner and a first liner, as Dan Holme told us. One of them was 30 goal scorers.
Stop trying to make magic. Stick with what has worked, okay? You have Logan Thomas. You have Logan Thompson. So I don't know. I think this was just a weird game for Washington. I don't see them losing back-to-back against Carolina. However, these teams split during the regular season, and I think the Canes just play with a different attitude under Rod Brind'Amour in the playoffs. Plain and simple.
And by the way, to go off that, Rod Brind'Amour, since 2019, Carolina 8-1 after winning game 1. So that could be a tall task for the Caps.
That stat's interesting. I guess it tells you something, but it also tells you nothing all at the same time, right?
Please go ahead. It usually what that tells me is when they're, a favorite in the series, they get it done quickly. That's kind of what I read from it. It's not a hey, look at how they bounce back after a loss. It's like when they have a foot on your neck, they step down.
Here's what I'll say. Washington is in the second round for the first time since they won the Stanley Cup in 2018. Mm-hmm. This is a little bit of unfamiliar territory. Mm-hmm. To your point about the core, the nucleus of that team, not all still there. So in Washington, for some reason, just has a history of faltering this time.
Playing with their food, at least.
Yes.
Outside, yes. Outside of 18, that was always, and I know you remember the Penguins fans chanting on Capitol Hill, "You can't beat us." They couldn't get past them in the second round. So there is still some of that, I know it. Hey, from being a Bruins fan, there's a couple of Stanley Cup final runs, and outside of that, they couldn't get out of the second round. A lot of years they couldn't get out of the first round. So there does need to be an immediate correction for this Capitals team.
I would say that, we're taping this late, but just thinking back to how Washington played and Vegas played for the final 50 minutes, kind of sleepy. Good hockey games, but
real sleepy.
A little bit sleepy.
And hey, if we can't afford to be sleepy during those games, the home team can't. There's no excuse.
No excuse.
Because we're here every night. Whenever the last game ends, we are here and bringing you nothing but the scores, the stats, the storylines about everything going on in the NHL, because that is the night that was in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So guys, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. It's completely free. It helps us keep our jobs. And you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts as well, 7 nights a week, giving you everything you need to know about what's happening in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network a part of your daily routine. And remember, again, 7 days a week from your local experts and the guys like us, Tyler Feldman and Cam Stewart, on another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night.